Daniel Brooks opened his eyes to smoke and the sharp smell of burning metal. His head hurt, and his left arm felt heavy. He lay on the cold ground outside the broken hull of the colony ship Dawn's Hope. The ship had come down hard on this unknown planet, after the engines failed during re-entry. Alarms had screamed, lights flashed red, and then everything went dark. He pushed himself up slowly. Around him, pieces of the ship lay scattered across black volcanic rock. Lava glowed far in the distance, like rivers of fire, under a purple sky with two small moons. The air was warm and thick, carrying a faint sulfur smell. "Laura," Daniel called, his voice rough. A weak answer came from nearby. "Here. I'm okay." Laura Brooks crawled out from under a bent panel. Her face had a cut on the cheek, but her eyes were clear. She was his wife of 12 years, the ship's main medic. They had left Earth together to start a new life on a distant colony. Now that dream lay in ruins. Daniel helped her stand. They checked each other for broken bones. Nothing serious, just bruises and small cuts. Most of the crew had not been so lucky. The crash had killed many. Only a few life pods had ejected in time. Daniel and Laura were among the survivors who made it out on foot. "We need water and shelter," Daniel said. "First things first." They walked through the wreckage, picking up what they could. Daniel found a small toolkit, still sealed in its case. Laura grabbed a first aid kit and some ration packs. They filled water bottles from a small stream that ran near the crash site. The water tasted metallic, but seemed safe. As the twin suns began to set, painting the sky in deep orange and red, they heard a sound. It was low and sad, like a deep cry echoing from the rocks. "Did you hear that?" Laura asked. "It's coming from that cave up the slope." The cave mouth was wide and dark, framed by cooled lava flows. Heat rose from inside. They moved closer carefully, flashlights in hand. The crying grew louder, sharp, frightened, almost like a child in pain. Inside the cave, the air grew hotter. Glowing rocks lit the space in soft red. In the center lay a huge creature. It looked like a dragon from old Earth stories, but real and alive, or almost alive. Its body was covered in dark scales that shimmered like obsidian. Long wings lay folded against its sides. Sharp claws dug into the stone floor. Its eyes, large and golden, were half closed. Blood pooled under its chest from a deep wound. Next to the dying creature sat a cracked egg, bigger than a man. A small hole had opened in the shell, and from inside came the weak cries. The dragon lifted its head slowly. It looked at Daniel and Laura. No anger showed in its eyes, only deep sadness and something like a plea. Then its mind touched theirs. Images flooded Daniel's head, pictures without words. A vast sky, flying together, nests high on mountains, then fire and metal falling from above, the ship crashing. Pain, a last effort to protect the egg. The creature had fought to save its young, but the crash had hurt it too much. The dragon sent one clear thought: "Help my child." Then its head dropped. The golden eyes went dark. The massive body became still. Laura covered her mouth. It was asking us." Daniel stared at the egg. The cries inside grew weaker. He stepped forward. "We can't leave it." He knelt by the egg. The shell was thick, but cracked in places. Carefully, he widened the hole with his hands. Warm air came out. Inside, a small creature moved. It was about the size of a large dog, with shiny scales and shades of red and gold. Tiny wings fluttered weakly. Its eyes opened, bright like hot coals. It made a small sound. Not afraid yet, just confused and hungry. Laura whispered, "It's beautiful, like a little ember glowing." "Ember," Daniel repeated. "That fits." He reached in slowly. The hatchling did not snap or bite. It let him lift it out. The small body was warm, almost hot to the touch. Scales felt smooth like polished stone. Ember trembled in his arms. They carried the hatchling outside the cave. Daniel set it down on soft ash near the wreckage. Ember tried to stand, but fell over, legs too weak. It looked around with wide eyes. Laura opened a ration pack and offered a piece of protein bar. Ember sniffed it, then ate quickly, making small happy sounds. Daniel watched. Its parent is gone. You're all it has now. Laura nodded. This planet belongs to them. We're the strangers here. But we can't just leave a baby alone. Night came fast. The 2 moons rose, giving pale light. In the distance, more lava flows glowed. The ground shook lightly now and then. Small quakes common on this world. Daniel looked at their supplies. Not much. The crash had destroyed most of the ship. They needed a better shelter than sleeping under open sky. I can build something, he said. Use parts from the hull. There's metal, wires, tools. We make a simple wall and roof first. Laura smiled tiredly. You always fix things. They worked through the night by flashlight and moonlight. Daniel cut sheets of hull metal with a plasma cutter from his toolkit. He bent pieces and joined them with bolts. Laura helped carry and hold. They built a low shelter against a big rock, open on one side but strong enough to block wind. Ember watched from a short distance. The hatchling sat on its haunches, head tilted. Its ember eyes followed every move Daniel made. When he hammered, Ember's tail twitched in the same rhythm. When he lifted a heavy piece, Ember tried to push a small rock closer, as if helping. Daniel noticed. He stopped and looked at the little dragon. You want to see? He slowed down. He picked up a flat stone and placed it carefully on the ground. Then another beside it. He showed how to make them straight. Ember came closer, very slowly. It reached out one claw and pushed a stone into place. Not perfect, but close. Daniel smiled for the first time since the crash. Good, he said softly. Like that. Ember made a small chirp and pushed another stone. Laura watched them. It's learning already. They finished the basic shelter just as the first sun rose again. Inside, they had space for sleeping bags, food, and water. Ember curled up near the entrance, watching them settle. Daniel sat outside, looking at the vast alien landscape. Smoke rose from distant vents. Strange birds with leathery wings flew high above. This world was beautiful and dangerous. He glanced at Ember. The hatchling slept now, small chest rising and falling. Trust had not come yet, not fully. But the little dragon had not run away. It had stayed close. Daniel did not know then that every small act, every lesson in building, every gentle word, would teach something much deeper than how to stack stones or join metal. He was teaching trust. And trust, on this strange world, would change everything. Weeks passed on the strange volcanic world. The 2 suns rose and set in a steady rhythm. Daniel and Laura worked every day to make their small camp stronger. The basic shelter from the first night had grown. Now it had solid walls from ship metal and local black stone. A roof kept out the ash that sometimes fell like gray snow. Inside they had a small stove made from engine parts. It burned clean with fuel from the wreckage. Ember grew fast. What started as a dog-sized hatchling now reached the height of a pony. Its wings had stretched wider, though it could not fly yet. The scales shone brighter, deep red with gold edges that caught the light like fire. The little dragon spent most days near the camp. It no longer hid in the cave. It watched everything the humans did. Daniel noticed how Ember copied him. When he measured a piece of metal with a ruler from his toolkit, Ember tilted its head and stared. When he marked lines with a sharp tool, the hatchling scratched similar lines in the dirt with one claw. When Daniel welded 2 pieces together, sparks flying bright, Ember's tail flicked back and forth in the same rhythm. One morning, Daniel started a new project. He wanted a better water collector. Rain came sometimes, short, hard storms that left warm puddles. He planned to catch more of it. He took a large, flat sheet of hull metal. He bent the edges up to make a shallow basin. Then he set it on a frame of strong pipes. He worked slowly, explaining each step out loud, even though Ember could not speak words. "See this?" Daniel said. He held up the sheet. "We bend it here so water stays inside. No leaks." Ember came closer than usual. Its hot breath touched Daniel's arm. The hatchling reached out and touched the metal with one claw. It pushed gently, testing. Daniel smiled. "You want to help?" He placed a small stone next to the frame. "Put this under here. It holds the weight." Ember looked at him for a long moment. Then, carefully, it picked up the stone in its jaws and set it in place. The stone fit perfectly. Daniel nodded. "Good job," he said. Ember made a soft chirp, almost like a purr. Laura watched from the shelter door. She held a bowl of cut fruit from their rations, mixed with some soft plants they had found safe to eat. She set the bowl down near Ember. The hatchling ate quickly but neatly. After, it licked its snout and looked at Laura. For the first time, it stepped close enough for her to touch. Laura reached out slowly. Her fingers brushed the warm scales along its neck. Ember did not pull away. "You're getting brave," Laura said quietly. Daniel kept teaching without pushing. He never grabbed or forced Ember to do anything. He just worked, and let the hatchling join when it wanted. One afternoon, Daniel built a small forge. He used fire bricks from the ship's engine room, and a blower made from a fan motor. He wanted to shape metal better, make tools, maybe even weapons if needed. He started a fire with dry volcanic wood. The flames roared hot. Ember came right up to the edge. Heat did not bother the dragon. Its scales seemed to drink it in. Daniel heated a metal rod until it glowed orange. He hammered it on a flat stone anvil. Each strike rang clear. Ember watched every move. Then it opened its mouth and let out a small stream of fire. Controlled, not wild. The flame touched the rod and made it even hotter. Daniel stopped hammering. He looked at Ember with wide eyes. "You can do that?" Ember closed its mouth and tilted its head, as if saying, "Of course." Daniel laughed, a real laugh, the first in many weeks. "Okay, let's use that." He showed Ember how to aim the fire just right. Not too much, not too little. Together they heated pieces of metal. Daniel shaped them with hammer blows. Ember added heat when needed. They made a simple hook first, strong and curved. Then a small shovel for moving ash and dirt. As days went on, Ember brought things to Daniel. A smooth stone, a straight branch, once a chunk of shiny ore from the hillside. Daniel used what he could. The rest he set aside politely. "Thank you," he always said. Ember began to stay closer at night. It curled up near the shelter wall, wings folded tight. Its body gave off gentle warmth that kept the chill away. Laura started talking to Ember too. She told stories from Earth, about oceans, forests, cities full of lights. Ember listened with bright eyes. Sometimes it sent small pictures into their minds, flying over red mountains, diving into warm lava pools, playing with other hatchlings long ago. One evening a storm came. Dark clouds rolled in fast. Lightning cracked across the sky. Rain poured hard, mixed with ash. Daniel and Laura ran to secure the camp. They tied down loose metal sheets. Wind howled. Ember stood outside, wings half open. It looked up at the storm, not afraid. Then a strong gust lifted one of the roof panels. It flew toward Daniel. Ember moved fast. It jumped in front, wings spreading wide. The panel hit its back with a loud clang. Ember grunted, but held firm. Daniel rushed over. "Are you hurt?" He checked the scales. A small dent, nothing broken. Ember shook itself and chirped. Daniel put his hand on the hatchling's shoulder. "You protected me." Ember looked at him. For the first time, it pressed its head gently against Daniel's chest. Just for a second. Warm. Trusting. Laura came up beside them. Rain soaked her hair. "It's okay now. The storm is passing." They went inside. Ember followed. For the first time, the hatchling stepped all the way into the shelter. It curled up in the corner, taking up most of the floor. Daniel and Laura sat close. Daniel looked at the little dragon, bigger every day, but still young. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. Ember closed its eyes. Its breathing slowed into sleep. Outside, the rain slowed to a soft patter. Lightning flashed far away. Daniel did not know it yet, but each day he spent showing Ember how to build was doing more than making walls or tools. He was showing the hatchling that the world could be safe with others in it. That strangers did not always mean danger. That trust could grow, slow and steady, like a strong foundation under a house. And on this alien world, where dragons ruled the skies and lava shaped the land, that lesson would soon matter, more than anyone could guess. Daniel Brooks woke to the sound of heavy wings cutting the air. He sat up fast in the dim light of dawn. Laura was already at the shelter door, looking out. Ember stood beside her, body tense, scales raised along its spine like small spikes. Outside, 3 adult dragons circled high above the camp. They were huge, each one longer than the old colony ship, with wings that blocked the suns when they passed overhead. Their scales were darker, almost black, marked with deep scars from old battles or eruptions. Their eyes glowed like distant fires as they stared down. One landed on a nearby ridge with a thud that shook small stones loose. It folded its wings and let out a low rumble that vibrated in Daniel's chest. The sound carried no words, but the meaning was clear. "This place is ours. The young one belongs with us." Ember stepped forward, its wings half opened, not in threat, but in answer. It sent a burst of images into Daniel's mind, fast and bright. The dead parent, the crash, the humans who fed it, sheltered it, taught it. Then a new image, Daniel's hand on its scales, gentle and steady. The adult dragon rumbled again. Its tail lashed once. The other 2 landed now, one on each side. They formed a half-circle around the camp, their eyes fixed on Daniel and Laura. Laura whispered, "They want Ember back." Daniel nodded slowly. "We can't fight them. We won't." He stepped out of the shelter. He kept his hands open at his sides. No tools, no weapons. Ember moved to stand beside him, shoulder brushing Daniel's leg. The contact felt warm and solid. The lead dragon lowered its head. Its snout came close, close enough that Daniel could see the fine cracks in its scales, the heat rising from its nostrils. It sniffed him. Then it looked at Ember. Ember sent more images. This time, Daniel saw them shared with the adults too. The hatchling showed the lessons. Stones stacked straight, metal bent and joined, fire shaped with care. It showed the shelter standing strong against wind and rain. It showed Daniel bandaging a small cut on its wing after the storm, speaking soft words. The adult dragons stayed still. Their rumbles grew quieter. Daniel spoke, calm and clear. "I didn't take your young one. Its parent died protecting it. We only helped." He pointed to the half-built forge they had made together. "We built this. Ember helped. It learned. It chose to stay." The lead dragon turned its gaze to the forge. It stepped closer and sniffed the metal. Then it looked back at Ember. Ember chirped once, sharp and sure. It walked to the forge and picked up a small metal piece in its jaws. It carried the piece to Daniel and set it down at his feet. Then it nudged Daniel's hand with its snout. "Show them," he said softly. He started the small fire in the forge. Ember opened its mouth and added a thin, controlled stream of flame. The metal heated fast. Daniel took his hammer and shaped it into a simple bracket. Strong, clean lines. The adult dragons watched every move. One of them let out a deep sound, not angry, more like surprise. When the bracket was done, Daniel held it up. "This makes things stronger. It holds weight. It lasts." He set the bracket against a stone wall of their shelter. He showed how it fit, how it locked pieces together. Ember pushed another stone into place beside it, helping without being asked. The lead dragon stepped forward. It lowered its head again, this time not to sniff, but to look closer at the work. Its claw reached out. It touched the bracket gently, testing its strength. Then it pulled back. A new image came into Daniel's mind, not from Ember, but from the adult. A picture of their own nests, high on the cliffs. Old stone walls cracked by quakes, young ones lost when parts fell. The image carried pain. Daniel understood. Your homes break sometimes. Ours can help. We build different, but together, maybe better. The dragon rumbled low. It looked at Ember. Ember met its gaze without fear. Then something happened. A small rock slide started on the slope above the camp. Loose stones tumbled down fast. Dust rose in a cloud. Daniel turned to run. A large boulder broke free, big enough to crush the shelter. Before he could move, Ember leaped. Its wings spread wide. It threw its body between Daniel and the falling rock. The boulder hit Ember's side with a heavy crack. The young dragon cried out in pain, but held its ground. Smaller stones rained down, bouncing off its scales. The slide stopped. Silence fell. Daniel rushed to Ember. "Are you okay?" A long scrape. Scales cracked in places. Blood seeping dark red. Ember trembled, but did not pull away when Daniel touched the wound. Laura came with the first aid kit. She cleaned the cut carefully. Ember let her, eyes half closed. The adult dragons watched. None moved to take Ember. The lead one stepped closer. It lowered its head and blew a soft, warm breath over the wound. The bleeding slowed. The heat seemed to ease the pain. Ember looked up at the big dragon. It sent one clear image. He helped me. I help him. The lead dragon straightened. It looked at Daniel for a long time. Then it turned and walked back to the ridge. The other two followed. They launched into the sky. Their wings beat once, twice. They climbed high and flew away toward the distant mountains. Daniel let out a breath he did not know he held. "They're gone." "For now," Laura said. Ember leaned against Daniel. Its breathing steadied. Daniel put his arm around the warm neck, careful of the wound. "You saved me." Ember made a small sound. It pressed closer. They spent the rest of the day tending Ember. Laura wrapped the wound with clean cloth from the kit. Daniel brought fresh water. Ember rested in the shade of the shelter. As evening came, the young dragon stood again. It limped a little, but moved to the forge. It nudged the tools with its snout. Daniel smiled. "Not today. Rest." But Ember insisted. It picked up a small piece of metal and set it in the fire. Daniel joined it. They worked slowly. Daniel guided Ember's claw to hold the piece steady. Together they shaped a small plate, something to reinforce the shelter wall. When it was done, Ember carried the plate to the wall and set it in place. Daniel bolted it down. The shelter looked stronger already. Night fell. The two moons rose. Ember curled up near the fire. Daniel and Laura sat close. Daniel looked at the sky where the adults had gone. They saw what we did. They saw Ember choose. Laura nodded. They'll come back. Maybe not angry next time. Daniel put his hand on Ember's side. The young dragon sighed in sleep. The warmth spread through Daniel's palm. He had come to this world as a stranger, a crash survivor, an intruder. Now something had changed. Ember trusted him enough to stand between him and death. And in that moment, Daniel understood the truth he had not seen before. He thought he was teaching a hatchling how to build, how to stack, weld, shape. But every day, every small act, had been teaching something bigger. Trust. Trust that another being, different, soft-skinned, wingless, would not hurt. Trust that sharing knowledge made both stronger. Trust that the world could hold more than one kind of people. And as the fire crackled low, Daniel knew the dragons would return. When they did, the lesson would continue. Not just in metal and stone, but in hearts. Daniel Brooks stood at the edge of their growing camp and looked up at the new structure they had built together. It rose tall against the red-black sky, a spire made of ship metal and volcanic stone. The base was wide and strong, built from large blocks Ember had carried down from the cliffs. Higher up, the walls curved inward, with smooth human welds holding steel beams in place. At the top, a wide platform opened to the sky. The spire looked like two worlds joined, the raw power of dragonwork mixed with the clean lines of human design. Months had passed since the adult dragons flew away. Ember had grown much larger. Now the young dragon stood taller than two men, with wings strong enough to glide short distances. Its scales glowed deep crimson with bright gold streaks. The wound from the rock slide had healed into a faint silver scar. Ember moved with new confidence. Every day they worked side by side. Daniel taught more difficult things. He showed how to measure angles so walls stood straight, even on uneven ground. He explained load-bearing, how weight moved down through supports to the base. He drew simple plans in the ash with a stick. Ember watched closely, then used its claw to copy the lines bigger and deeper. Ember taught Daniel too. The dragon showed how to test stone for heat cracks. It breathed gentle fire on rock samples until weak ones split. Strong ones stayed whole. Together they picked only the best stones for the spire. Ember carried the heavy pieces in its jaws or on its back. Daniel guided where each one went. Laura helped in her own way. She gathered food, safe roots, fruits from low trees, fish from hot springs. She kept their small garden growing in sheltered soil. She also made salve from local plants to keep scales healthy. Ember let her rub it on its wings without pulling away. One clear morning, distant roars echoed across the valleys. The sound rolled like thunder. Daniel looked up. High in the sky, dark shapes appeared. More adult dragons than before. 10, maybe 12. They flew in a loose circle, wings beating slow and powerful. Ember stood tall, its wings opened halfway. It sent a calm image to Daniel. They come to see. The dragons landed one by one on the wide ledge near the spire. The ground shook with each landing. The lead dragon, the same one from before, stepped forward. Its eyes moved from Ember to the tall structure, then to Daniel and Laura. No one spoke at first. The air felt thick. The lead dragon lowered its head and looked at the spire base. It walked around slowly, claws clicking on stone. It sniffed the welds. It tapped a steel beam with one claw. The metal rang clear and solid. Then it sent an image, sharp and clear, to all of them. Daniel saw old nesting cliffs, cracks in the walls after quakes, falling stones, lost eggs. The image carried worry. "We can make them stronger," he said. "Like this spire. It stands against wind and shake." Ember moved beside him. The young dragon touched the spire wall with its snout. It sent its own images back, building day by day, Daniel's steady hands, the feeling of safety inside strong walls. The adult dragons rumbled among themselves. Low sounds passed back and forth. One younger adult stepped closer. It looked at Ember. It sent a question image. Why stay with them? Ember answered fast. Images of warmth in the shelter, food shared, wounds cleaned, lessons given without taking. The last image showed Daniel standing in front of the rock slide, Ember shielding him. Then the reverse, Ember hurt, Daniel helping. The lead dragon looked at Daniel again. It lowered its head until its snout almost touched the ground. A sign of respect, Daniel guessed. Daniel pointed to the spire. Come, see inside. He walked to a wide opening at the base. Inside, the space felt cool and open. Pillars held up the levels above. Sunlight came through small holes they had cut. Ember had carved patterns in the stone walls, simple swirls like wind or flame. The adults followed slowly. Their big bodies filled the space. They moved carefully, wings folded tight. Daniel showed them the supports. These beams take the weight. The welds hold tight. No weak spots. Ember breathed a small flame on one pillar. The heat tested the join. Nothing moved, nothing cracked. The lead dragon watched. Then it turned to its group. It sent a shared image. New nests with human metal mixed in stone. Stronger, safer. Some of the adults rumbled agreement. Others stayed quiet. Outside, a storm gathered fast. Dark clouds rolled in. Wind picked up. Lightning flashed over the mountains. Daniel looked at the sky. A big one coming. They knew these storms. Hot rain, strong wind, sometimes ash that burned skin. The lead dragon sent an image. Our nests need fixing. Now. Daniel nodded. We can help, if you let us. Ember chirped once, clear and sure. The adults looked at each other. Then the lead one stepped back and spread its wings. It launched into the air. The others followed. They flew toward the high cliffs where their nests sat. Ember looked at Daniel. It nudged his shoulder gently. Let's go, Daniel said. They packed light tools, hammers, cutters, bolts, a small forge. Laura carried medical supplies and food. Ember carried the heaviest parts in a net made from ship cables. They traveled for hours. Ember glided short stretches to scout ahead. Daniel and Laura walked steady. The ground grew steeper. Heat rose from cracks in the rock. At last they reached the nesting cliffs. High ledges held dozens of nests, big hollows carved in stone. Some looked old and cracked. Others had fresh breaks from recent quakes. Adult dragons waited. More came from the sky. Young ones peeked from inside nests. The lead dragon landed on a wide ledge. It pointed with its tail to a large nest with deep cracks. Daniel walked over. He studied the damage. We can brace it here and here, he said. Add beams across. Weld them to stone anchors. Ember understood. It began clearing loose rock with its claws. Daniel set up the small forge. Ember heated metal pieces. Together they shaped long braces, strong but light. Other dragons watched. Some came closer. One brought a large stone block and set it down carefully when Daniel pointed. Hours passed. Sweat ran down Daniel's face. His hands ached. But the work went fast with so many helping. They braced 3 nests that day, each one stronger than before. The dragons tested them, pushing with claws, breathing fire to check heat. Nothing failed. As the sun set, the storm broke. Rain poured hot, wind howled, lightning lit the cliffs. Everyone moved inside the biggest nest. Ember curled near Daniel and Laura. The adults formed a protective circle. The wind shook the mountain. Rain lashed the openings, but the braced walls held. No stones fell, no cracks grew. When the storm passed, quiet returned. The lead dragon looked at the new braces. It sent an image of thanks, simple and deep. Ember pressed close to Daniel. Its head rested on his shoulder for a moment. Daniel looked around at the dragons. Huge, powerful, but now calm. He saw young ones playing safe inside strong walls. He had come here thinking only of survival. Now, he saw something bigger. He and Ember had built more than stone and metal. They had built a bridge, and trust grew stronger every day. The ground trembled harder than ever before. Deep rumbles came from the heart of the mountain. Smoke poured thick from the main vent. Lava glowed brighter in the cracks below the nesting cliffs. The air smelled sharp with sulfur and heat. Daniel Brooks felt the first real quake hit just after dawn. Small stones rolled down the slopes. Larger ones cracked loose and crashed far below. The dragons stirred fast. Adults rose into the air with heavy wing beats. Young ones cried out from the nests. The lead dragon landed hard near Daniel. It sent a clear image. The fire mountain wakes. Old barriers fail. Eggs in danger. Daniel looked up at the cliffs. Lava already flowed in thin streams down one side. It moved slow but steady. The heat cracked old stone walls. Pieces fell into the growing red river. Ember stood tall beside Daniel. Its wings opened wide. It sent images back. We can save them. Laura grabbed the last of their tools and medical packs. We have to move fast. The dragons formed a line along the ledges. They tried to push big stones into place to block the lava paths, but the flows were too strong. The old barriers, simple piled rocks, crumbled under the heat. Lava poured through gaps. One nest caught fire. A mother dragon roared in pain as she tried to shield her eggs. Daniel ran to the nearest damaged wall. He studied it quick. We need braces, long ones. Cross them here and here. Anchor them deep. Ember understood. It flew low, stronger glides now, and grabbed thick metal beams from their supplies. Other dragons watched and copied. They brought more stones and old metal scraps they had kept from past crashes. Daniel worked without pause. Sweat mixed with ash on his face. He heated metal with the small forge. Ember added its own fire, hot and steady. Each one had sharp ends to dig into rock. They placed the first brace across a wide crack. Daniel hammered anchors in deep. Ember pressed the beam tight with its massive claws. The metal held. Lava hit the brace and hissed, but could not push through. More dragons joined. They learned fast. One adult copied Daniel's hammer strikes with its own tail. Another used its fire to weld metal without tools. They moved to the next nest. Lava had almost reached the eggs. Daniel shouted directions over the roar. Lower. Anchor there. Cross brace now. Ember translated with clear images sent to every mind. The dragons followed without question. They worked as one. Human hands and dragon strength together. A bigger flow came. It rushed toward the main nesting hollow where dozens of eggs sat. The old stone dam broke apart. Lava poured in fast. Daniel saw it happen. No time for more braces. We need a channel. Divert the flow. Cut a path there. Make it deeper. Guide the lava away. The lead dragon understood. It roared once, sharp command. Adults turned and clawed at the ground. They tore rock loose to make a wide ditch. Ember joined them, using claws and tail to dig fast. Daniel and Laura ran along the edge. They placed small charges from the ship's leftover explosives. Careful, small blasts to loosen stone. Each boom sent dust high. The ditch grew. Lava reached the new path. It hesitated, then followed the easier slope. The flow turned away from the eggs. Steam rose in huge clouds as hot rock met cooler air. The mother dragon in the main nest lowered her head. She sent a wave of thanks, warm and deep. Hours passed. The mountain still shook. Lava slowed, but did not stop. The dragons kept working. They braced more walls. They built higher barriers with the last metal beams. Daniel showed how to angle them, so lava slid off instead of pooling. Ember never left Daniel's side. When a hot stone fell near him, Ember shielded him with a wing. When Daniel's hands shook from tiredness, Ember nudged him gently, offering rest. But Daniel kept going. At last the main vent quieted. The lava flows thickened and slowed to a crawl. Smoke thinned. The ground stopped shaking so hard. Silence fell over the cliffs. Dragons gathered on the wide ledges. Young ones peeked out safe. Eggs lay untouched in strong nests. The new braces gleamed in the fading light. Metal and stone joined as one. The lead dragon stepped forward. It lowered its head low to the ground, lower than before. It touched its snout to Daniel's shoulder. Just a light brush. An image came, slow and clear. It showed the old ways, alone, strong but broken by time. Then new ways, humans and dragons side by side. Walls that held, young that lived, trust that grew like roots deep in stone. Other adults sent the same image. One by one, they bowed their heads. Its eyes shone bright. It sent its own picture, Daniel teaching the first stone, the shelter in rain, the spire tall. The moment it shielded him from the boulder, the moment he bandaged its wound. Then Ember looked at Daniel. It pressed its head against his chest, warm, steady, full of something like love. Daniel put both hands on the smooth scales. We did it together. Laura stood close, tears mixed with ash on her face. She smiled. The lead dragon rose. It spread its wings wide. A deep rumble rolled out, not anger, but something like a song. The other dragons joined. The sound filled the air, low, powerful, grateful. They launched into the sky one by one. Wings caught the last light of the suns. Young ones followed, learning to fly in the safe thermals. Ember stayed. It looked at Daniel and Laura. It sent one last image. Home here, with you. Bridge stays. You're always welcome. They walked back down the path together. The spire still stood tall in the distance, stronger than ever. Smoke curled lazy from the mountain, but no more danger came. Night fell. The two moons rose silver and calm. Stars filled the purple sky. Daniel sat outside the shelter. Ember curled nearby, wings folded, body warm. Laura leaned against the wall, watching the sky. Daniel looked at the young dragon, now almost full-grown, powerful and wise. He had crashed on this world thinking only of survival. He had found a hatchling and taught it how to build. But the truth was bigger. Every lesson in measuring, stacking, welding had carried a deeper message. Trust. Trust that a soft-skinned stranger would not harm. Trust that sharing made both sides stronger. Trust that different kinds could stand together when the world shook. The dragons had learned it. Ember had known it first. And Daniel had learned it too. He reached out and rested his hand on Ember's neck. The scales felt warm and sure. In the quiet night, with the mountains sleeping and the stars watching, Daniel knew one simple thing. He had not just taught a dragon hatchling how to construct. He had taught it trust. And in return, trust had saved them all.